From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America, your global pit stop for the latest news and headlines from the United States and around the world. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We'll get you a roundup of all the day's top stories, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. Qatar's prime minister says an Israeli invasion on the city of Rafah will lead to a continuous cycle of violence. The Qatari leader urges Israel to avoid an escalation in the region. Russia's defense minister warns his French counterpart against deploying troops to Ukraine. In February, President Emmanuel Macron said sending French troops to Ukraine was in fact a possibility. The United States and Finland signed a pact to counter manipulation of information and circulation of fake news by foreign agents. The two nations will rely on artificial intelligence to combat misinformation. Myanmar's military junta claims to have shot down 7 drones over the national capital as armed rebel groups amplify their offensive against the army. And Zimbabwe declares its ongoing drought a national disaster. The African nation has requested aid worth $2 billion for as millions of people continue to go hungry. We begin in the United States in the race for the White House. The battle for the Oval Office is in fact heating up as Donald Trump and President Biden campaign to rally their supporters. Now the race for the White House is expected to be very close, and the difference between victory and defeat could come down to just a small number of votes in a handful of swing states. Recent opinion polls show that Donald Trump is ahead of President Biden in 5 of the 6 swing states, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada. Meanwhile, President Biden is leading in 1, Wisconsin. Now, President Biden had won 6 of the 7 swing states back in 2020, but Donald Trump's wave of scathing attacks on Biden's administration appears to be breaking through.
The country is finished if we don't win this election. And I heard somebody say it, a scholar say it 2-3 days ago, said, if we don't win, this may be the last election our country ever has. And there could be truth to it. That's where we're going. Because Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. He's the threat to democracy. Joe Biden is so weak on the border that other countries are now publicly taunting and extorting him by pumping migrants across our wide open border. They're opening their jails and they're opening their mental institutions, and they're bringing them right in, and nobody stops them. Nobody.
Donald Trump's popularity is on the rise as President Biden's re-election campaign grapples with voter concerns over his immigration policies and the economy. Additionally, poll results show that voters see Donald Trump as younger and a healthier presidential candidate. In fact, Donald Trump has repeatedly called 81-year-old President Biden sleepy and old, despite being only 4 years younger. The surveys go on to highlight that Donald Trump has a favorable rating for his presidency in the 6 of those 7 key swing states. And as Trump regains popularity, President Joe Biden has teamed up with veteran Democrat Bernie Sanders to lower health care costs, which is a major concern among voters.
You know, the last few weeks, some of the big drug companies have gotten the message to reduce the prices for some asthma drugs. Bernie's a big reason why that's happened. Look, folks, there's a whole lot of prescription drugs that are undergoing the process of lower pricing. Medicare is now able to negotiate lower prices for some of the costliest drugs that treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. This year alone, the law that's already passed, it's in the law now, that we signed, Medicare is negotiating 10 of the most costly drugs next year, and they'll do that every year, beyond for the...
President Joe Biden and Donald Trump remain neck and neck with 7 months to go before voters head to the polls. And in the U.S., 7 months is literally a lifetime in presidential politics, meaning that there will be ebbs and flows certainly to occur between now and November. Donald Trump does, in fact, go on trial in less than 15 days, and it is unclear how his court battles will impact the race. The nation has never had a presidential candidate that has also doubled as a criminal defendant. So this is all clearly uncharted territory in the United States presidential politics. Certainly, the Biden camp is hoping their decided money advantage combined with Donald Trump's legal woes will be just enough to move the race in their favor. And staying with Donald Trump, the former president reportedly spoke to Saudi Arabia's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. Now, this may have been the first conversation between them since Donald Trump left the White House in 2021. However, it remains unclear about what Donald Trump and the Saudi crown prince actually discussed. Neither Trump's campaign nor the Saudi government have provided any comments on the interaction. This comes at a time when the Biden administration faces strained ties with Riyadh and a security crisis in the Middle East. The war between Israel and Hamas has become a deterrent for achieving peace in the region, and rising tensions with Iran and its proxy groups have also set the clock back on diplomatic relations. Now, Donald Trump and MBS have a history of close relations. In fact, Saudi Arabia was Donald Trump's first foreign trip when he took office in 2017. The Trump administration was also instrumental in stabilizing the Middle East with the Abraham Accords, which attempted to normalize ties between Israel and a number of Arab states, including Saudi Arabia, after years of frosty relations. In fact, the relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia remained cozy all the while Donald Trump was, in fact, in office. However, bilateral ties took a nosedive when President Biden was sworn in. President Biden even called Saudi Arabia a pariah state over the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And as relations rapidly deteriorated, the Saudi crown prince declined to speak to the U.S. president due to their ongoing disagreements. Now President Biden is trying to revive relations through a wishful trilateral mega deal. The United States remains committed towards normalizing ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia, all the while reaching a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine, and sealing a defense treaty with Saudi Arabia. Now, President Biden will need a 2/3 majority in Congress for approval of this defense agreement. But as Trump becomes the GOP presidential nominee, the question is whether the former president is attempting to undercut the efforts of the Biden administration in the Middle East, or was this just a casual call between old friends? And staying with the Middle East, where Israel is fighting on multiple fronts, the Netanyahu government is battling Hamas in Gaza, but also taking on Iran-backed Hezbollah in Syria. On Monday, an airstrike targeted the Iranian consulate building in the Syrian capital of Damascus. Israel was reportedly behind it, though it has not claimed or denied any role to date. Now, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has threatened to hit back, saying that Israel would be slapped for its airstrike, and also warned Israel over its ongoing offensive in Gaza.
This failure of the Israeli regime in Gaza will definitely continue, as well as these desperate efforts like what they did in Syria. Of course, they will be slapped for this action. They fell into their own trap, which there is no saving from. And every day the Zionist regime in Gaza continues, it will be closer to decline and dissolution.
Now, Monday's airstrike in Damascus killed 7 of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, including 2 generals and 2 Quds Force commanders. The Quds Force is the foreign operation arm of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And the Iranian ambassador to Syria said that the strike by Israel leveled the 5-story consulate building. Now, Iran blames not only Israel, but also the United States for this attack.
Unfortunately, the false claimants of human rights have been shamefully silent. And not only do they not try to stop the killing machine of the Zionist regime, but they openly and covertly participate in this crime, centered on the United States. Without any doubt, America is a definite accomplice in the crimes of the Zionist regime in Gaza.
Now, Israel has long considered Iran to be its main enemy. In fact, Iran backs all anti-Israel non-state actors in the Middle East, be it Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Yemen-based Houthis. In fact, since the Gaza war began in October, Israel has traded frequent cross-border fire with Hezbollah. The strike on the Iranian mission has escalated tensions further, raising fears of a direct confrontation between Israel and Iran. And reports say that Israel is in fact beefing up its air defenses and has called up its reservists in anticipation of an Iranian strike.
Every day we gain further evidence that we find ourselves in a multi-front war, that is both offensively and defensively. We operate everywhere, every day, in order to prevent our enemies from gaining strength and in order to make it clear to anyone who acts against us, all over the Middle East, that the price for action against Israel will be a heavy one.
Meanwhile, Washington has informed Tehran that it did not have any prior information about the strike on its mission in Syria.
Well, we've made it very clear in private channels to Iran that we were not responsible for the strike that happened in Damascus. I will reiterate, the U.S. had no involvement in that strike, and we had no knowledge about it ahead of time. So I'll just leave it at that.
Now, the U.S. has also urged Iran to not take advantage of the situation to resume its attacks on American forces deployed in the Middle East.
We will not hesitate to defend our personnel and repeat our prior warnings to Iran and its proxies not to take advantage of the situation. Again, an attack in which we had no involvement or advanced knowledge to resume their attacks on U.S. personnel.
In fact, all of Iran's allies have in fact condemned the attack. China called it unacceptable, and Russia said it was an act of aggression.
At present, we would not be making premature conclusions, but in any case, a delivery of such strikes amounts to violation of all foundations of international law and is an act of aggression.
Even neighboring Iraq has called the attack a flagrant violation of international law. And as the war in Gaza drags on, this attack has only inflamed tensions in the region. While it remains to be seen if Iran will respond with a retaliatory strike, what is certain is the chaos and instability in the Middle East will only intensify. And now in South America, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has accused the United States of constructing secret military bases in the disputed region of Esseuquibo. About 2/3 of Esseuquibo has been governed by Guyana for over a century, but Venezuela also claims it as its own. Our next report details President Maduro's provocative claims and the dispute between the two neighbors.
The South American nation of Venezuela has picked a fresh fight. They have already been at loggerheads with neighboring Guyana over the disputed oil-rich Esseuquibo region. This time, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has dragged the United States into the dispute. He claims that the United States is building secret military bases in the contested territory of Esseuquibo. The disputed region is said to have the world's largest oil reserves. It's been governed by Guyana for more than 100 years. However, Venezuela claims Esseuquibo as its own. Maduro has alleged that the secret US military bases will act as an aggression against the people of his country. He believes Guyana and the US are preparing for an escalation against Caracas. The Venezuelan leader claims to have information that the bases are being installed by the US Department of Defense. President Maduro has also targeted Guyana's president Irfan Ali. He claims that Ali does not govern Guyana. Instead, Georgetown, Maduro says, is governed by Washington's Central Intelligence Agency or CIA. The US has security presence in Guyana to provide military support and training to Guyana's army. In his provocative remarks, the Venezuelan president also slammed Guyana for supporting American multinational oil corporations.
The new government of Cooperative Republic of Guyana shows a dangerous political provocation against the peaceful Venezuela, supported by the imperial power of an American transnational, ExxonMobil.
Guyana has awarded American oil firms an exploration license for Esseuquibo. Now Maduro has doubled down on claiming Esseuquibo as part of Venezuela. In December last year, his government passed a referendum to include the region as part of its national territory.
And I can say with full knowledge of the facts, with all the powers and authority given to me by the Constitution, that the decision of December 3rd in the referendum, now law of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, will be fully compiled to defend Venezuela at international forums.
The dispute over Esseuquibo is not new to either country. It dates back to the early 19th century when Venezuela laid claim to it. However, the contested region was awarded to the British colony of Guyana in 1899. In recent months, tensions have been soaring over Esseuquibo, which constitutes about 2/3 of Guyana's territory. And now, the US is being dragged into yet another conflict.
And finally, the world is eagerly awaiting for the 2024 Summer Olympics to begin, and all eyes are on the city of love, Paris. French officials are leaving no stone unturned to beautify this host city, including forcefully relocating French-speaking West African migrants 250 miles away from Paris. Now, this action has sparked accusations of social cleansing against the Macron government. Our next report explains.
The 2024 Summer Olympics are less than 100 days away. France is the host this year, and the world is excited. French authorities are diligently overseeing preparations in Paris to ensure a seamless execution of the mega sporting event. Efforts are underway to meticulously organize the bustling city. The most recent incident saw the relocation of migrants from central Paris. In a pre-dawn operation, French police evacuated approximately 50 individuals, including women and children, from the forecourt of Paris City Hall. These migrants were mostly from the French-speaking West African nations such as Burkina Faso, Guinea, Ivory Coast, and Senegal. They were forced to pack their bags and were transported 250 miles away from Paris to be housed in government facilities in eastern France. The French government defends these measures. They say it's part of a broader strategy to alleviate the strain on Paris's emergency shelter services, denying any direct link to the upcoming Olympics. However, skepticism from aid organizations and humanitarian workers has grown after the relocation of African migrants. They perceive it as a veiled attempt to cleanse the city ahead of the Olympics. Claims of social cleansing have stirred a controversy. Activists condemn this act as they view it as a systematic displacement of marginalized communities to enhance the city's image for the global stage.
They're clearing the way for the Olympic Games. So, in fact, it's nothing less than social cleansing to disappear from the region. We know this. We have been denouncing it for months, and that's what's happening here.
A week ago, people protested against this social cleansing. They demanded the government to protect the rights of thousands of migrants living on the streets. The protesters claim that authorities are working to push marginalized communities out of Paris to make room for the Olympic Games.
The Olympics are coming up. Public spaces will be saturated. 15 million tourists will come, and therefore the people living on the street, who are always the last forgotten in our society, will find themselves chased outside the city. They will find themselves harassed by authorities. And there are already signs of expulsions of squatters, of camps, of shanty towns, which have been raised for the past several months. So we want to be heard.
Just days ago, Paris banned 800 people from attending the Olympics over security concerns. The French Interior Minister categorized them as people who did not have good intentions. As the countdown to the 2024 Summer Olympics continues, social exclusion has become the norm in France on the pretext of security. As Paris prepares to host the biggest sporting spectacle, the question is whitewashing an intentional move to beautify the city?
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.